All right, it is 7:06 and I will call the April 10th Newcastle Select Board meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right. Moving on to item 3, amendments to the agenda. See any? So moving on to 4.1, the minutes from April 3rd, 2023. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
Yep.
Moved by Karen. Do I have a second? Seconded by Tom. Any discussion on the minutes?
They look good.
All those in favor?
Yep.
4 with 1 absent. All right, moving on to item 5, public comments for items not on the agenda. Board requested public comments and limited to 5 minutes per subject. Do we have any public comments? Yep. Yep. State your name and where you live.
Christopher Doherty from South Newcastle.
Right.
I'm here. Greetings, board.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm here trying to figure out where to get the money to pay for a street lamp at the end of Station Road and Route 1. The usage, the electrical usage cost. I'll begin by saying I started this project probably 20 years ago when I got requests from neighbors, Annie Army, Pat Hudson, Jim Hudson, Lucy Harrington, Nancy Hartley, among others. Oh, the Cunninghams, saying, how come we don't have a street lamp at the end of this road? It's a dangerous intersection at nighttime. So at that time, I went to the select board in Newcastle and requested a street lamp. And they said, well, we can't justify that because that first 75 feet of Station Road is in Edgewood.
Yes.
So the following year, I went to Edgecombe. And I said, can we get a street lamp at the end of Station Road? And they said the converse. Well, we can't justify that because there's only 2 residences in Edgecombe on that road. So the next year I talked to DOT. And they said, we don't have the money for that stuff. We can't put a street lamp. Call us back next year. So I called them again. I got no one. This year, I had a little bit of time. In December, I called Representative Crafts and I said, what do we need to do to get a street at the end of the Station Road? Route 1? And she said, well, as a matter of fact, I've had a bunch of complaints about the danger of that intersection. And I'm holding a meeting with DOT coming up soon. Would you be willing to participate? And I said, absolutely. So I got the call on a Tuesday night. She said, we're meeting Wednesday at the town hall in Edgecombe. I said, I'll be there. I called the manager. I said, you want to send anybody representative from town of Newcastle to this meeting? She said, no, that's in Edgecombe. So then I thought, CEO of Edgecombe is CEO of Newcastle. So I called George and he said, absolutely, I'll be there. So we went to the meeting. Representative Stover was there. Representative Crafts was there. Senator Rennie was there. I can't remember, 4 or 5 members of DOT giving their presentation. Apparently, they had a lot of complaints of both the intersections of Cochrane Road and Station Road. They had rearranged Cochrane Road, Station Road to be a safer intersection. As we know, one of our friends got killed there because of the rearrangement. Nobody's going to admit that. They said, we're going to address that. We're going to move the lines back so the cars are further back. And so we listened to all that. And then I said to David Allen, he was the chief guy there. I said, what do we do to get a street lamp at the end of Station Road to make that a safer section at the nighttime? Mostly people turning in station. And he said, we don't have any money for that. We don't go around. We can't light every intersection in the state of Maine. So then I said, then I told him my story. I just told you. One of the other guys, Stephen Landry, at the end of the table said, I'll put a street lamp there.
Who's he?
Stephen Landry.
Yeah.
He's like number 4 down the totem pole, safety engineer at DOT. He said, but you're gonna have to figure out who's gonna pay for the electricity usage, not the cost of the land. So I called Senator Rennie. I said, is there any mechanism in the state government, some rule someplace that can facilitate the resolution of this problem? And number 2, how much electricity is it gonna be to be used? Because I asked Stephen Landry, I said, what I would like is a solarized LED dark skies efficient street lamp. So it doesn't bug anybody, doesn't cost me. He says, well, the solarization doesn't work in this state because the solarization can't keep the battery long enough through the long winter night. But otherwise, we've got a stock lamp we'll put there. I said, even Stephen, you're going to put down on the CMP pole there? He said, no, we're going to put it on our own pole. But once again, I iterate, you got to figure out who's going to pay for it. So I'm looking for help to figure out who's going to pay the electricity. Senator Rennie said somewhere between 25 and $30 a month. I did call Tor and I said, Tor, do we need to establish a interlocal agreement to figure out how we can cooperate, pay for this? So
That's interesting. How
guys got any suggestions?
the pole's gonna be in Edgecombe.
Yes.
And so if it was hooked up to electric there, that's Edgecombe's electric that it's being hooked up to.
Well, it's CMP.
Okay. So they
I
just don't
mean,
know how to
the only thing I
build.
would say is they're gonna put up a marshmallow. Yes. They put up like LEDs that we have.
Yeah.
Well, is that the case?
That's what. we
Yep,
pay.
yeah.
I mean,
If they
that's
cheat.
our-
Oh, so that'll be more typically the case then.
Well, you'd hope, but yeah.
If they put up an LED,
Yeah.
which they should.
Yes, well. Gee,
But they're talking about putting it on a separate pole.
yes, he said, I'm gonna put my own pole there, MDOT pole, put the light fixture on there. So that saves the town all that cost.
So how do they do that? Do they put a meter on one light pole? No. how
I
do they
don't
do it
know. I
then?
bet the manager knows better.
No.
If the poles in Edgecombe, I bet it would be added to Edgecomb's electric. If I had to guess.
Do you know? Oh, it's just a per,
It's totally on.
But this
So
is-
they CMP have to build. Based on. When what the fixture, multiply it out. The rate. And get a bill.
Yeah, that's,
Yes,
yeah, Stephen Landry, no, David Allen said. If we put traffic signals in, on Route 1 in a particular town, that town pays for the electric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The usage,
We pay for them. By sheets.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, from. If it's anywhere close to what we pay for, LEDs for the lights that we bought and put up. Again, we're paying about $3 a fixture. Per month for the electricity. So it's, I mean, I paid $3. I think Edgecombe would pay $3 too, I mean, but it's a
Well-
matter of of working out the details. That's the part I don't.
Well, that's what I'm looking to help, because I talked to Mike Smith, Chair of Edgecombe. Of the Select Board. And first he said, well, again, we can't justify that. Because it's in Edgecombe and there's only a couple of residents. But he said, bring me some numbers. So the number is whatever that number is, the usage cost. And the fixture is more. What the usage is.
Well, I mean. I'm thinking if it's like $36 a year, it's not worth administration time to try to deal with the Edgecombe, figure that out.
but were they gonna put up a different fixture? Because they gave him a figure that was a
No,
lot
I-
higher.
They
than
didn't
that.
give it to me.
Yeah.
Oh, they didn't.
No.
Oh, where did the number that you say?
Which number?
You said something about Was it
That
20?
was, that number, it was a off the top number.
Oh.
Cameron, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So that's just based on an average light fixture, not necessarily.
LED.
I didn't query here where it's got the number from.
I mean, as far as I can say that it is it's a bad spot, it's a bad intersection, anything we could do to get something there would be great. It's that no man's land of, the first literally the first 75 feet is in Edgecombe. It's a weird town line. It's a weird town line situation, but again, it's one of those things. I mean, I think if you looked at our current plowing contractor, our current plowing contractor is plowing for 75 feet of that road. It's
So
Yeah.
maybe Edgecombe.
because Edgecombe isn't gonna come over and
Mm.
plow 75 feet of
Right.
a road. So
So we're saving them.
it's a silly thing. I mean, there is a line that we,
Same at the converse end.
Yeah.
At Cochrane Road.
Yeah.
Newcastle plows about 600 or 700 feet into Edgecombe, where they turn around and go back the other way.
So then Edgecombe should be happy to pay for this light.
well,
We're saving them all this money in plowing.
Well, it's kind of a reciprocal agreement between the contractors.
So they're plowing some of the hours.
No,
No.
they just follow the path of least
Yeah.
resistance. And that's another thing I learned in this query about, nobody really knows where the boundary is between Edgecombe and Newcastle on that road.
Yeah.
Because I was hoping maybe it was in Newcastle. But I got a map. But that's another problem. Okay.
breaking my own rule with
5
discussing
minutes.
this for more than 5 minutes,
I
but,
know. Then
so I would like to, you have an idea? You wanna approach the-
All right. Real quick, if you actually wanted to get this done, the easiest way to do it is to find out what the actual cost would be and present a multi-year contract to the town of Edgecombe from the board of Newcastle for the fee, because they will get the bill from CMP for the light because it's in their jurisdiction. So you just figure out how long you want to pay that bill for, at what rate, and you offer them a multi-year contract. The light goes up, it gets paid for out of Newcastle's coffers, and Edgecombe gets a check from us once a year.
Interlocal agreement?
Multi-year contract.
All right, thanks, Ben.
Just
Look into it.
if we can
But
just
we-
verify that they're gonna put up an
We
LED light
need to-
fixture.
Yeah, we
So,
need
so
to-
can I pass this problem on to you folks, or do I have to keep it?
You don't want to give it up, do you?
No, because I mean, we're getting a free fixture. That's a great thing, especially if it's the comparable fixture to what we've got. It's a good deal. We paid a fair amount of money for these fixtures. That's why our cost was down substantially. Is we paid them off. We paid it. It was like the most cost effective thing we've ever done. Is switching our street lights.
Yeah. But perhaps that's why they're volunteering to put one up, because they're not gonna give us. give us a
Well,
capital
that's
light.
what I'm wondering, are they gonna
That's
Yeah.
that's
give
the
us something
question.
out of their storage shed or? are
Yeah.
they gonna-
Well, he said, Landry said, we have a fixture that we keep in stock for this
Oh.
use.
We just need to verify. the kind of
Yeah, I
yes,
think we just
yes.
need to get the details on that. I mean, and again, it's a weird thing. It is an edge. It's a funny. It's just a funny piece. 'cause
I like your
again,
proposal.
Yeah, we won't
Do-
discuss that on camera.
Do you think that they can forward you just the specs on the light so we at least know?
I will inquire.
Thank you.
Be great.
I think we can put this finally within a year.
I
Did he
hope-
say how quickly they thought they'd get it put up?
What's that?
Did they say how quickly they thought they'd get it put up? Be able to,
No, he needs the answer first.
Yeah, since
Before
we
he
pay for it.
puts it to work.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks. All right, any other public comments on the agenda?
Hey.
Hey, Chris.
It, Chris, it pays to keep at something. It pays to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks,
Good
Chris.
job.
All right, moving on to new business. Move on to 7.1, authorize town manager to assign main DOT authorization to grant temporary construction rights and accept offering price. This is where we get money. for something,
Ah,
right, Sarah?
Yeah, a whopping
Yep.
$250 this year, if you all approve it. So essentially, the general project is that Maine DOT is coming in potentially this fall to it's going to be this year, whether it's in the fall, we believe so at this point. But presently, they're negotiating with all of the affected property owners for temporary construction rights. They're replacing and upgrading the drainage system along the southern end of Route 215 to mediate stormwater issues through Route 1B and 215. And upgrade closed drainage system at the intersection of Main Street and Pump Street. So the new piping will also be installed to connect the drainage system of Academy Hill that the town constructed in 2020. So Academy Hill will feed into the DOT drainage that then goes into the bay. So essentially all they're asking for, and it will happen whether we approve it or not. They're offering us $250 in order to access temporary construction rights on the town office address. It's just the corner where our garden is, and it's not all of the garden. It's just a little teeny tiny corner of it, but I need your authorization to allow me to sign off temporary construction rights for this project for this year.
They're gonna take it no matter what.
They're gonna take it no matter what, so we might as well take the offer.
Well,
Are they
Betsy and I, it'll be $250 worth of our time, which we donate anyway, but it'll be $250 worth of our time to dig up the plants that they're gonna
That's
end
what
up
I'm
running
wondering.
over.
What do they do
Yeah,
about that?
it's a portion, it's just a small,
Yeah.
but there are some flowers in that area.
Yeah.
Once you
I
dig
have a
those up.
map here. I'm happy to share. It was too large for me to scan into the packet.
Yep.
If you want to see it, Tor, but it actually, it doesn't even take out any of our trees or bushes. Karen
Good.
thought it was just the dead stump.
There's a
That's
stump there,
highlighted.
there's a stump that I've wanted to get rid of for a few years. This will do it. And then some flowers on either side of it. And all that crabgrass thing.
Okay.
The electricity usage on the street light would only be $35 that would pay for it for 7 years. Just saying.
There we go.
All right.
Do we have to vote on that?
Yes, please.
So do I have a motion to authorize town manager to sign the MDOT to accept the offering price for temporary construction? As presented.
Yes.
Moved by Karen. I have a second, seconded by Tom. All those in favor?
Yep.
That's 4 of 1 abstention. Or 1,000. Okay. Moving on to 7.2, adopt comprehensive plan implementation committee scope and establish committee. What's up? And do you have any copies of this?
I have one copy I can share. I did send it digitally.
Okay. Would anyone like to look at the paper copy?
And so that I don't forget. There's nothing on the agenda here that. Ubiquitous thing, whatever it's called. It's contracts. Oh, we're gonna talk about that later. It's a contract, okay. It's fine. Cause I have a big like, what?
Yeah, it's executive.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Yeah, so. I guess we should just kind of review this and go through it.
Yep, so this was requested by Tor, I believe, a few months ago, suggesting that even if we haven't received our approved comprehensive plan back from the state, that we should still form an implementation committee just to keep momentum going. The proposal here is just a diverse group of 5 to 9 residents, property owners, and business owners, with meetings of the full committee estimated to be held once a month, including 1 member from the select board and 1 from the planning board to participate. Each committee member may also be involved in a smaller subcommittee dedicated to a specific project or goal. it has flexibility in how it can and should be structured once they start meeting and determine exactly what things they want to focus on in implementing the comprehensive plan. But it's recommended that they elect a chair and a secretary to have that organization within.
I think that, I mean, it's just, this is kind of a different setup than what we've always kind of talked about, the implementation committee being. And that they would be an advisory group to both the select board and the planning board.
And we
Can be-
included that in the activities of the committee. So the
Uh-huh.
goals we were hoping would be included. So it does say that the chair would run meetings, manage discussions, secretary will draft memos and reports, and then we'll share and report back to the select board planning board. Ultimately, it's a committee. So everything they do is advisory to the select board. But this is just, yeah, I mean, it is. It's an advisory committee to the planning board and select board. They don't have the authority to go.
Yeah.
But they come up with
Yeah,
a scope of work, figure out what specifically they want to work on, and then bring those reports back to elected officials and staff. So it can be generally organized. The activities of the committee would be organized into the following groupings: identify and define objectives, because the comprehensive plan has many goals. So kind of homing in on exactly what the committee wants to work in and correspond with the board and planning board on as well. Connect and coordinate with regional partners, develop work plans and critical path actions, and then use performance measurement techniques to monitor and assess the progress, and then report back to town officials and the public, and potentially identify sources of funding and raise funds at all. So this was just supposed to be a broad definition of what the committee would work on. And it can be further elaborated on by you all if you see things that you want to add in or change in the scope, but this is a conversational scope.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody looked. But we do have a matrix. That identifies the work of the implementation committee.
Yeah.
Identifies various sort of tasks, but it also gives you a sort of target board to work with. So let's select board work and review, let's identify what's planning to be identified and work with. So sort of, so there's, so in other words, they don't have to redefine it, but they don't have to come up with that. That's already been established. So it's more just implementing.
Yeah.
Definition. So
yeah.
So it's pretty clean, clear, concise. You take this and complement it with the top one. I guess the only question I have is about raising funds, and I don't know how that would, I could see if there was a recommendation to say, so we go after some grant money and then work with the planner and the staff to say, here's sort of a task. See that, I guess it's really fine, but that's a. So that's kind of the only question I have. Sort of perspective on that.
And I think that's exactly what that section was hoping to address, just that they would help identify sources of funding and maybe help to connect private and public sources, identify grants, and then they would have to collaborate no matter what with elected bodies and staff in order to move forward.
Yeah, it was in the very first one too. It's just as far as charging the committee with it, because I think that's something that can be can be part of it. I just wouldn't want that to become a focus of the committee. I think there's other, but it's good. Yeah, I mean, it's not.
What about then, if you are comfortable with adopting the scope of the committee and the size and how many meetings they'll have in the month, if you want me to just edit that last sentence to just say, this committee will need to work with local officials, staff, and outside organizations to determine funding needs, period, and remove the rest, would that help meet the goal you're hoping for? And then you can adopt it as amended if you wish.
Yeah, I guess what I was thinking is just in the title. Identify sources of funding is good enough.
Okay.
And raise funds, I think. should be
Yeah,
deleted, just
delete
because
it.
that's a very specific charge to this committee.
Yeah.
Get into that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's overreaching what this committee should do.
Yes. Yeah, I think raised one. People like that. Everything is pretty.
Sarah, under develop work plans and critical path actions. Is it the last sentence, they will additionally need to collaborate with staff and set elected officials, or are they gonna elect officials? I think it
It
means
was
elected.
supposed to be.
Okay, that's what I thought, okay.
Well,
Just want to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding.
So I can fix that as well.
Okay.
Adopt as.
I almost wonder if that last sentence is so that this committee will need to work with local officials, staff, and outside organizations to determine funding needs as well as raise and allocate funds from a variety of sources. That part's.
Yeah, that's
good.
where I was wondering if maybe we could just put a period at the end of funding needs and just delete the rest of the sentence and then adopt it as amended, as in addition to changing. the title.
Where is fun, so what,
Determine funding, period. And get rid of the needs as well as raise and allocate funds from a variety of sources.
yeah. Yep. Well, that's good.
And then if you all adopt this, do you all want me to publicly post in the paper saying we're looking for volunteers? Or just our website?
Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess it's, I mean, I mean, the idea was that we built this committee. You know, I would like to know what, it'd be nice to know what the state has to say about our comp, which they seem to be silent about. So that's frustrating. But as we said, it shouldn't hold this up. I guess. I would say, can we? As a select board, I think he's got a lot else to worry about, right? I guess it depends how long it takes. I don't know. Is it something we?
When would be the envisioned time for them to get up and running?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the question. You know, is this ASAP or is it?
In 6 months or so.
Time release and, you know, we have some other things and. You know, in order, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I have no idea. I mean, we do have this. Special district historic preservation ordinance we're working on too.
Yep.
And there's a contingent of that could open up some funding too. So I don't know if there's. Be nice to know. But you know, these documents are living, so. You know, we can't wait for everything to happen. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing out the question. I haven't thought about exactly. We just start building a committee. It just starts to. I just don't want it to lose steam as soon as we kind of get. You know, get the.
Mhm. If there's nothing. for them to do, jump.
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, there's, I mean, we have a comp plan approved by the of the town, and that's what we're actually really discussing. I haven't even seen the one that's been submitted to the state, so I don't even know what it said, but it's true, so I don't know, I don't know, but I do agree with the fact that we have this document that was approved by the voters. We need to brush the dust off of it, because whether or not there's state numbers, but the state's rejection of it, from what I understand, is because of the format was different. They didn't like the difference in the format, and that there were some numbers that they didn't like how they were charts, whatever. But again, regardless of that, what we have right now before us is the document that was approved by the voters.
Yeah.
So, I think it's time to brush the dust off that and start revisiting that. Start revisiting, that. And I think, again, the idea with this comp plan implementation committee is that it's kind of the fun group where they get to look at what's been, what the direction of the town is supposed to be, and start making suggestions instead of what we can do that, and checking to make sure that there's some clerical stuff, and just making sure that we're in line with what the voters wanted. And I think that, I don't really care about the state. Sad about what we're staffing on, because we
Well, it's not materially changing with what was resubmitted, right? It's just to make it conform to whatever they wanted to conform to.
The vision
Yeah.
wasn't changed at all
Yeah.
in any way. We made sure that tables in the comp plan were representative of state data that they wanted to see included.
So we
Doesn't-
have our comp plan regardless.
It doesn't
It's already here.
materially change.
Yeah, it's been the committee funds, we can enjoy it.
I solicit an opinion from the chair of the planning board. Do you have any opinion on this? So,
Time to do it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. time to do it. Just get this off the ground. Go for it.
Then let's advertise. Yeah, let's advertise it. We're looking for people for it.
I'm gonna put it in the paper as well as the website.
What are we gonna put this whole thing? in?
No.
No.
I just put an ad in saying we're looking for.
Yep.
5 to 9, okay? So,
Yeah, no,
Members,
I think 5 to 9 is right.
okay.
Under, me, let's make it perfect. Under monitor access progress. On the second page. Committees needs an apostrophe.
Got it.
Thank you.
Do we wanna just to keep this moving, do we wanna? We wanna talk about who's in the board wants to become involved in the committee to keep things going. Get things going, at least help, because I mean, it's otherwise it's just.
I mean, I'd be interested in.
I'm not asking you to chair it. I'm just
No, I'm
asking
getting
you-
it. Yeah, I guess, yeah. the board, but- Step one, too, take my place, but-
And maybe it will coincide with the end of the historic preservation
That's
piece
what
a
I'm
little bit.
thinking.
No, right, I mean, that's not, I mean, that's seems like it's, yeah. It's not extremely heavy, but.
Yeah.
If you have capacity. to spend.
Okay. Cool, so what is so we're gonna adopt the,
Scope is amended.
All right, so do I have a motion to adopt the comprehensive plan implementation committee scope as amended?
Sure.
Moved by Tor, do I have a second? Seconded by Karen, all those in favor? All right, that's 4 absent. And then, yeah, established. Great.
Good.
Okay. Moving back to fiscal year 24 budget review.
Should we jump to the other stuff for right now?
Okay.
The, do the undesignated fund balance, and
We can talk about that.
those are more interesting conversations
Yeah.
right now.
So, is that cool if we just jump into the,
It's up to all of you how you want to organize it. If you want to
I'm just afraid,
bounce around.
I'm afraid we
that's
won't
fine.
get to that if we try to go line by line
Right.
through the other stuff.
well, I think it kind of helps with some of the other,
Yes, it does.
some of the.
It
other
does
stuff.
impact them a little bit too.
So
Or it can.
if we jump back to some of our earlier discussions about undesignated fund balance, we just passed a policy a few meetings ago, sort of defining how much of an undesignated fund balance we're supposed to be maintaining, which is this number is 1.3 of the,
Yep, it's an estimated 1.325
okay.
million which is, and the policy is within 10% of 3 months policy balance goal. I don't have calculated for you though, the most 3 expensive months of any year, which I guess I would ask that we didn't include that in the policy. We may want to amend it, or you may just want to take that into consideration when we're talking about this. Because we do have a few very heavy months that are typically front loaded. July, August, September is when all of our capital roads bills usually come in. That can vary year to year depending what we approved in the budget. And it's usually, I believe off the top of my head, it's usually July, August, and September, but I want to make sure I pull that and verify and what the numbers historically have been, but it's going to be dependent on roads capital. And then also the county payment comes in at that time.
Did we, but wasn't it just an average of the 3 months?
That is what we put in the policy.
Yeah.
And then on thinking about it, we need to make sure no matter what, that we have the amount in undesignated fund balance needed to cover
The 3 most
the 3
expensive.
most expensive months, does that make sense, Joel?
I mean,
It's not what was adopted in the policy.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you to consider it when we're talking about these things, because you don't want to drain
I mean-
your
I think the idea with the undesignated fund balance was that again, we went with 3 months, which was a pretty, again, a pretty safe, it was on the upper, it wasn't on the top end of what we were talking, but it was on the upper, it wasn't a low figure for 3 months. 3 months was kind of a,
I guess I was thinking that it was the budget divided
yeah.
it was.
by 4 and then it would be the 3 months.
That's exactly it, but I'm just bringing up for you all to consider.
Yeah.
That the 12 months are not distributed equally.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
But I don't think.
But it's also that would be based on 0.0, that would be us at, I mean. Going to nothing going into those 3 months of the,
Right, not like,
yeah.
I don't think we intend to bring it down to the last dollar. at this point.
I mean, 1.325 million. For, I guess we're setting that as our thing, but again, I think I would stick. I don't know how much it would raise it by going to the 3, by just averaging. 3 most expensive.
It would depend every year, depending on really on how much capital road work we're doing.
Yeah. That's why.
I think it's an easier computation.
Yeah.
Computation. It's just, yeah. Budget previous year divided by 4.
And that's what's in the policy.
It's quarter of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with that.
All right.
It's a cleaner way to look at it. Cause the idea is to get this into something that. Again, we're trying to not. Yeah, not overtax, and that seems pretty good. 800 used to be the number we were shooting for. That was years ago, but it's not there. But
Inflation.
800 is what we.
So anyway, I compiled a list of the capital project considerations that we've talked about so far in meetings. If there are others you want to add in here, I left blanks for that too. But this is just a place to start this discussion. See if there are things that you do want to designate out of undesignated fund balance for this year.
Start off, I want to do solar.
So, I think again, this is my idea. I've talked to some of you about it, as to how I would like to look at dealing with the undesignated fund balance is that the way we've done it in the past has been that we simply have an article where we vote to move $250,000 out of undesignated fund balance to offset taxes. And I think that's a bad way it's a bad way to look at extra undesignated fund balance. Because I just feel like it provides it makes you want to keep the undesignated fund balance high, so you always have that $250,000 to pull out of undesignated fund balance to keep, because if you're trying to offset taxes because taxes have gone up, that's not representative of what's actually going on.
Right.
If we're using this money, and I think again, the idea is to expend it in a way where being clear with the town that we're moving money from undesignated fund balance for specific projects. And some of those projects could be, looked at where if there's been maintenance or repairs that have been neglected over the years, it's a good use of undesignated fund balance, because again, it's money that's already. Again, I won't go into the whole in and out of how we got to this place with getting this money. It's not because we were technically, don't yell at me. We weren't raising this through taxes. It was raised through difference in calculating revenues, and revenues being higher than anticipated. So at any point, this is just one concept of a way to go through and allocate the money from an undesignated fund balance in a way that, again, for some of these one-off situations, rather than putting it in an annual budget and having that annual budget go up and down, we're using the undesignated fund balance in an article form, so it wouldn't. And I don't know if this actually works or plays out. It wouldn't actually affect the budget line in that particular item. So if we were going to be, again, approving money for a solar installation on to offset electrical needs for the town, it wouldn't necessarily hit our annual budget. It would be a warrant. And that's my question. I think I'm correct in that. Am I correct? Am I
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Again, I'm not
Yes.
the greatest at that.
It would be a separate warrant article to transfer this money out of undesignated. It would not be raised by taxes. in the budget. So
So-
this is a separate discussion in a way from
Yeah.
our regular budget.
And where in like our spreadsheet here would it show up as a expense?
It wouldn't, it would be taken out of the undesignated fund balance account in our general ledger with
Yeah.
this approved project, with these approved projects. So you wouldn't see it reflected in our budgeted amounts
To make sure that it's
here.
for history, it's
It
It's
would,
there somewhere to be able to.
it would be,
It is as far as our audit would go, but it would be reflected in history through the warrant.
through our annual town report. It would all be listed. It would say what the money was for and all that other stuff.
So it's
Right.
different than a.
So it wouldn't. be-
Different than a reserve.
You can choose to allocate some of this money to reserve.
Yes, yeah,
Well, I'm just looking,
But,
we do have a fire.
right.
right. But you can also just choose to allocate it for certain projects, which you'd have a separate.
Right.
And
And so,
then you'd also see it in the warrants that you get at select board meetings when those expenses come through, and it would just say charge to.
My question would be is if you take something out of an undesignated fund balance and the project doesn't happen that year. So for a specific article, say it was solar first, say we talked about doing solar. We didn't expend that money in that year. Does that then just roll back into the undesignated fund balance? Or
Yeah.
is that a standalone thing where it just,
It would never be moved from the undesignated fund balance would be what would happen
Okay.
if we didn't move forward. with the
but that
project.
authorization would lapse at the next fiscal year?
I believe so.
That's the question. I
so
have.
then the only way to avoid that, if we wanted to avoid it,
Well,
well, like with one or two of things on here, we would have to create a reserve for it. And move
Correct.
it into the reserve.
if
Well, it's a
we're-
good question though, Joel. If you just have a warrant, let me ask Peter about it. If you have a warrant article saying that you approve it for this project and you don't spend it in that fiscal year, can it still carry over
it
to the
would
next
seem
year?
like
Let
it
me
would still
ask. That's a
carry
legal
over.
question.
But.
Oh.
So you do,
Yeah, unless the warrant article specifically says.
A date.
multi-year,
oh,
It's only good for one.
okay,
So you word it by saying what
Yeah,
in the warrant.
You can word it. You can word it such that the voters approve it. The project, we're taking this amount of money out of undesignated fund balance. And it may roll into the next year before all of it is spent. Or so, funds to be expended over the next 2 years, funds to be expended over the next 3 years out of the undesignated fund balance.
Right.
Okay,
so for a solar project, we wouldn't necessarily do that, we would hope to do that in the next year, and we would just do it, and that's the idea.
we have to get on someone's calendar now then.
Who wouldn't do that?
You could reallocate it.
Yeah, you could reallocate it. So, I think that's one way to look at it. I think things like if we're looking at doing some projects to town buildings, I would say that again, having more warrant articles isn't a bad thing because it explains what we're doing with the money. And I think that's the important thing, and that's part of being transparent.
Yep.
So if we're saying, the warrant article for deferred maintenance to town buildings, we're moving X amount of dollars, and whoever's covering that, what does that mean? We can explain the warrant article, we can have the list of what it is that we're allocating that money for, moving it into that reserve account. I think that's important, and if that shows up on the budget sheet as to what it is, I think that's key. If this is how we're looking at moving forward with this stuff. Because again, if we're putting something in a reserve account, the danger of that is that it just becomes, again, another way to allocate money from a place where it's just sitting stagnant to another place where it's just sitting stagnant. So I think if we're moving money from undesignated fund balance to something, it should be for a specific purpose that we're hoping to accomplish in that next
in the
year.
year.
And if it
Mhm.
takes longer to get the work done, that we have it, but it's actually for those projects so that it's not just building up another account that's kind of sitting there or can be grabbed at for whenever.
Right.
So I think that's one of the other ways I was kind of looking at it. And then the other possibility that we kind of discussed a little bit in one of our meetings earlier was the idea that if we did want to set up a reserve account and move a larger amount of money. So right now we have our undesignated fund balance, which is only making a small amount of interest where it's sitting. And if we wanted to move money from undesignated fund balance for a project, so for instance, if we had a committee that was looking into the options of building a new town office, and the town approved that, was into that idea, and there was a recommendation that, yeah, we really should think about building a new town office. And we move some of that money from undesignated fund balance into an account that made more money. We would have that money allocated from undesignated fund balance. It would be sitting in an account that would be earning higher interest that would then apply to that project. That would make sense. So, or we just give it all back and blow taxes for it. So, I don't know the way to do
Well,
it.
we have a few things that need to be done.
So I guess, so what's your thought then on the reserves? I mean, because we do have municipal building reserve. Some of these, you could sort of say that, you know, Sheepscut building, this building here are, you know, fit within what the building, municipal building reserve is sort of there. For as well. So how do you?
Yeah, it's up to you. If you want to allocate that money to the reserve account to cover these expenses, that wouldn't, believe it would have to be a separate warrant article because it would be a transfer from undesignated.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah,
just allocate it to that
Yeah,
reserve
would.
for those needs.
So,
For these needs.
Right.
But I'm saying so right now we have 70, or is it 75,000? Yeah,
And that's raised through taxes.
right, okay,
And-
for municipal buildings.
let's,
So, yeah, just one second.
Go ahead.
You know, the idea then would be, you know, if all these items were to be, put into the reserve, then that number would increase by 75 plus that. So.
Right, right. That was my idea, but it's up to you all.
Well, I'm just wondering, this is already meant to, this was already set up to basically capture these types of
Right.
things. So why not just use it out of reserve?
Yep. And then we have a means of how we.
Yeah.
And then the only thing on this list that wouldn't fall into one of our existing reserve accounts would be the land acquisition.
Sarah, unless I'm probably just not remembering, why are we looking at going up on the municipal building reserve? What was the anticipated expenditures next year?
And just increased cost and the fact, we've fallen quite a bit behind in municipal. We had dropped it last year to 50 from 75 and ended up. I was hoping to bring that back up so that if their thing, so that we could start building that reserve back up. A little bit. To fund bigger things if we do.
What did we spend 50,000 on?
Where is that?
We spent, it was
Year to date,
year to date, we spent 50,000. Budgeted 20,000, we budgeted 50,000, we spent 50,000.
It ends up showing up differently in reserves when you have the year-to-date figures. It just shows up as the transfer to the reserve account. So what
Oh,
not
yeah,
what
yeah,
we
yeah.
actually budgeted,
see.
and I don't have the
doesn't show
actuals
it.
until I get the audit.
right.
Except by manually calculating it. So I manually calculate it in the
See, this
columns
is
you
what
have
I
here
had
on the
to say.
right.
Okay.
But
So,
Oh, I do.
so I don't know what we started the year off with, but it's, you know, it's down to that amount. Okay,
based on the last year's and then manually. It's hard.
So what, and can I just ask what the process is for starting a new reserve account?
We would just need to have a warrant article authorizing, that a new reserve account.
Okay.
And then we would say, and then we want to designate, if you wanted to designate money to that from undesignated, then you just specify it then
create the reserve and fund it with as much money for this.
from undesignated, or if you could just create the reserve and have it as a budget item. Like we did with the fire.
Yep.
So what reserve item are you talking about? You were saying.
In general.
Creating a,
Just wondering.
just in general, creating.
And again, historically, the idea with reserve accounts is to. With some of these reserve accounts, again, and this is why reserves get tricky, is that. Some of them we treat in one way and some of them we treat in another way, where the municipal building reserve is treated more like a piggy bank, because it's just like whatever comes up, comes out of it. And I'm just not so sure that that's how we should look at it. The fire truck reserve, the concept behind that is that you put money away over time so that taxpayers, as time goes on, are putting some money into that in anticipation of the future to help buffer the costs at the time of going out for.
So we have a good
Go-
down payment.
Yeah, so it doesn't, and yeah, so it's a fairer way of taxing for this. And again, it does create this funny, when I look at reserves, and again, I know we're kind of going all around Robin Hood's barn here, but it all kind of ties back in, it kind of ties back into the same thing. And that's in how we're taxing our residents and just being fair with how we allocate this money. Yeah. Go ahead.
Can I synopsize a little bit? So we can keep it moving
Yeah.
forward. If I'm hearing you all correctly. All but land acquisition could potentially be allocated into reserve accounts, in your opinion. So why don't we go through each of these items one by one and see if you're comfortable budgeting for these within this next year or not? And then we'll see what the total is. In addition, we want to transfer out of undesignated fund balance into the reserves. If you're comfortable with that. I would just say, though, for food for thought, for some of these larger expenses, such as the fire truck, you always have the option of, when you get the actual invoice in and it's time to, and you've already approved the purchase of, I guess the fire truck actually is a bad example. Let's say, because you already have a reserve for it. Let's say you wanted to create, we've been talking a bit about like engineering for the intersection. If you wanted to create, there's been talk maybe about creating a reserve for engineering for these things, but for these larger projects, you always have the option of when you go out to bid, have an RFP, then having a special town meeting and allocating to move money out of undesignated at that time, when you have the actual cost in front of you. If you don't want to create a reserve for a capital expense like that, but there are things you want to transfer.
I think that makes sense. So just on the fire truck, my recall about the discussion that we had here with Steve, or Casey, was that, when you commit to buying a truck, you don't pay until it's delivered.
Right.
So therefore, it's kind of like, okay, and there's a timeline to get so whatever that is, it's like 2 years, 3 years. yeah. So the idea was, and so you commit to the price and it's delivered at that cost, so it doesn't change that time.
Right.
So we were gonna build up, at the time, we were talking about building up a reserve to move towards that, and then at the time that we would come to that expense, then we'd raise basically the next portion of that in reserves through the next few years. to that.
Or finance.
Or
balance.
Or finance it,
Finance
right?
Yeah.
balance or-
Yeah.
So I guess I think you're just putting this in here as just
That's-
sort of a gross number.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
And so,
And it's a very rough estimate. We don't actually have. But it's just a
Gotcha.
placeholder.
Yeah, so we're not, so you're not proposing that, but $650,000.
This year.
No, no, okay.
It's up to all of you, how you want to allocate it. I just wanted to make sure you had all the numbers of everything that we've talked about.
Well, so on the timeline again, I think, weren't we talking about pulling that trigger in the next year or two? Under the date on that.
Yep.
I think Casey was saying we have about, you might know the numbers, for
That one's due to be replaced. in
4 or 5 years.
Well,
Like good 3 years.
yeah, I mean, the unit that's. The unit. That is looking to replace. Is,
Not to put you on the spot here, I was just wondering if you had that already
it,
qualified.
we did. Been doing work on it to make it last until the payment of the last. Which we're looking at. We're in our
4 years.
second year now out of. That we. Spent. Getting. To last month.
So if it's taking an estimated 3 to 4 years for this to come in,
I mean, they're, at this point, they're already working on the design to try to get some numbers.
Right.
So that. Cause we're about a year, probably a year, between a year to 2. From having. Get it on board, to be able to get it.
Okay.
But we still don't have that build price and spec yet.
No, cause I mean, there's a process of design and then bid. So that all takes.
Yeah.
So they're working on it right now. and The idea of being that. So,
So I'm trying to think, when would we need to order it? Like, if
Well-
it's gonna take 3 years.
I think it's about a year,
In about a year.
about a year.
I think the piece that we were kind of talking about with that too, if I remember from that meeting, is that we were maybe looking for, if we were gonna pull the trigger on something, because again, it didn't need any money. It didn't need any money up front. We were just kind of looking for the authorization from the county to order this stuff.
And if we get it, I mean, we did talk also about the fact that if we order it now, we get it a year earlier than kind of you guys were anticipating, it's still gonna be, it's gonna be cheaper than if we wait a year. Too. Things are going up so much every year.
Yeah, I believe it was 10 to 15% on conservative.
Yeah.
Increasing.
But we don't, yeah, we don't have a number.
That's pretty consistent inflation, no inflation, but still, it's always going.
I guess the thing, yeah. So I mean, the fire truck at a cost of 650,000 plus the already 125 in reserve. That's a big ticket item that removes a lot of money, designated fund balance. I don't know if that's what we're trying to do,
Well, but I think.
right
if-
now or not, or whatever, but,
But we're not gonna put the whole amount in.
Yeah, I think you wanna, I
That
don't
could
know,
help
I think
the
we need
budget. I
to,
mean, It can help the budgets. I mean. There's, this year we're at, looking at $75,000.
Right.
I mean, if you keep it at 50,
And then
move a little bit from designated, you're making up the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because if philosophically, if you think about in 3 years. Maybe we don't want to save all the money to pay for it. Maybe we want to continue to finance something,
that's what
at
I'm
least in
wondering.
part.
We don't know what that deal looks like yet.
Even if we just saved, took 300 out,
yeah,
we've got half, if we've got half or a little more than half the value of it. That's gonna be super. helpful, Even if you have to finance.
it is, again, I question the concept behind just moving something from one account to another, it just fits. I mean, I know it's allocated that, so it is a little bit different.
But if we're ordering the truck fairly soon, it's money that we're trying to spend. We just have to wait 3 years for the truck to be delivered.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that is a thing. All of the building, all of the items that we have here, these are all buildings that we have listed are all projects for the Huntley Fire Station and the Sheepscot Fire Station, which total 60,000. So was that wasn't part of what the 75 that was thought of originally, or is that's kind of part of?
It's up to you all to figure out, to determine how, if, when.
Yeah.
Just,
But is that what the 75? I'm asking. you for the-
it wasn't my intention, no, initially. I put 75 in before I had this list.
Okay,
However, if that's what you want, is for this to just come out of that 75 rather than transfer from undesignated, then that's fine.
Yeah.
This was supposed to be a chart just to talk about transfers from undesignated.
I have six,
which were last week.
there's 66,000.
I do.
In what the two paintings and the flooring.
In
and
the
heat pump
two
and the lighting.
buildings, 6
Yeah.
items,
Did math that bad.
5 items.
5 items, yeah. I think we're completely neglected, maybe it comes out of what we've already got in the budget, but we, one of our badly neglected buildings is, the town office. It needs, Sarah and I were looking at the fact, there's no paint on some of the trim the other day, and some of the siding is holes in it. And
So
I think a little bit could be done at the town office as well.
no, I think there's a lot of things that we can put to that account. I'm just questioning now whether this is an aggressive enough approach to deal with our undesignated fund balance or.
Well, we haven't gotten
If
to
there's
these big
another-
ones.
No, I know.
I mean, the total for all of these things, just for transfer from undesignated fund balance is.
Yeah, and that's taking that's 650 for the fire, and that's
Right.
650 for a fire truck too, so.
And nothing for the
And we already have.
unknown.
Yeah.
25.
So again,
We have no time. How quickly we have to do this.
right,
Not
Right.
that it's something to shoot for. I mean, it can be shot at for 3 years, just
Right.
trying to. I mean,
Right, we don't have to do it all today.
Work at it piece by piece. As we see. Yeah, I mean. I mean, it didn't go, the way I see it, it didn't go all in there at once.
Right.
It doesn't have to go out all at once.
I misunderstood. I thought the heat pump was for here. It's for the Sheepscot Fire Station.
Yeah, an attempt to, I believe the attempt on that would be the furnace. over there is original, but It's. It's just get to its. Yeah. End of its life, so. But the heat pump and it's. And there's also there is at during the summer months, moisture. More moisture issues. That
Good.
Especially during the summer, because there's no. It gets.
So that, those are, they're big numbers, but not a big number for this purpose.
and
I mean, I guess
That's fine.
I'm still, I don't know. I mean, I still think we should draw down on the reserves first.
what you
Mhm.
draw down.
Well, we have,
Well, take the 70, take. Take the money that's
we've got,
reserves for municipal building.
we'll have,
It's a total of 10,000.
Yep.
If we raise 75. I'm not saying we should raise the 75, I'm just saying that that money was in there, I think in theory, we don't have reserves, is that? For, for building.
you know, these things, which are really just, long-term. use part of this.
Right.
So,
Well, why would we drop, then we could drop the amount that we're budgeting to raise in taxes on those, drop it back to something smaller and then take some money out. of
well,
that.
that's what I'm saying. Maybe we don't raise $75,000 this year for building reserves. And there's still. Right, and then you make up the difference in undesignated fund balance.
And then this, again, kind of not to challenge my point, but it raises the question as to whether just how we're looking at this. Is it better to just put it all in the budget and vote to move a set amount of money out of undesignated fund balance or not? I mean, that's,
Well, no, we've got some better projects or better examples if we want to go down and talk about like solar.
Yeah.
That's not building maintenance. Or anything of that nature. So.
Yeah.
So the number for a solar installation was based off of installing panels on the Huntley Station roof. I reached out to 5 different companies. I got 2 different quotes back. The highest was an install rate of 91,000 approximately, but you would get credits back at the end of an estimated 27,000. You just have to have that money in order. The lowest estimate I got was about 72,000. So I put 100 in there just to be really safe. We have to go out to bid no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you know, solar is an investment, you know, it's because we're fixing the price of electricity, which then we don't have to worry about fluctuation in the future. So I think that's a great use of undesignated fund balance.
And we got an estimate of, remember you saying like 80% of one and maybe 100% of another to cover our electric costs?
It would not cover all of the town's electric needs, but it would be projected to cover a large percentage.
Okay.
Of our electric, and that's with all town building. Kilowatt hours.
what kind of large? Like. Other than not give you any-
I can give you, I have more, I can pull that for you and
Yeah.
give it to you after.
I think we can get in the weeds with solar.
Yeah.
I think it's conceptually
No, I think it's
that's a good
great.
number. Just because there might be, not only that, but there might be service upgrades that we need to do too.
Okay.
So there might be
Yeah, yeah.
electricity work there. that may not be considered.
And the roof is fairly new, right? So we don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. First, the connection.
Before you go down the solar path, it might not be a bad idea to check to make sure that we'd even be allowed to do net metering. Because I've been told by a couple of people that there are certain areas of Newcastle that they're not accepting any new net metering because they've maxed out.
Oh.
It's already been permitted or.
Hmm.
Know what I mean?
But, yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Great
So,
question.
it may not mean that you can't do solar. It just may mean that you may not be able to do solar on this route. You may have to do it like at the dump site in North Newcastle, or you may have to do a community solar project. But you may not be, you see what I'm saying?
No, I do. I think again, this is a
Well-
budget item with a 1-year timeline. So
Even if you,
Fine.
yeah,
if we find that it doesn't work here, then we just.
but the difference between a ballasted system versus, you know, a roof mount system is
Yeah.
a large, I mean, it could be 30% more. if we have to do it in Jones Woods.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
That was my push for trying to get it in this year, is I wanted to get ahead of.
I think it's already, I think the
Already.
ship has sailed.
Oh,
I mean, we should check. But what I've heard is that this is a no-go.
Who
Yeah.
has the answer to that?
CMP.
Oh, Dave, whenever you might get a response from somebody at some point. It might be accurate or not. Okay,
Already?
Well, we can get a lot more kilowatt hours out of the standalone. with the
This was my-
transfer Station.
Guess I'm glad I got underneath that wire.
yeah, maybe you're the reason why we
Yeah.
can't get it. You and Ben.
I mean, in the context of budgeting, though, is this a project you all want to have included in a warrant article, and if it
100%.
doesn't happen,
This doesn't come to fruition.
Right.
Yeah.
We're-
Yeah,
we're
we have
no-
to find somewhere else.
yeah.
to put it.
Yeah,
We
Right.
have a gratification. That would be more
but
expensive.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd like to push with the concept that
Yep.
if we can get under the wire, that that's what
Yep.
I'm trying to,
And we have another option. We have a backup plan. that we can-
yeah, and
So-
that requires.
here's what I'm hearing from all of you, if I can just put it into a sentence. You're considering taking the first 5 building items and yes, transferring the total amount from undesignated fund balance to the municipal building reserve and reducing the amount in the municipal building reserve accordingly that we increase, that we're proposing to raise through taxes. And then for solar, having it included in a warrant article just to spend from undesignated. And at this point, not to keep the fire truck situation potentially the way it is, or raise some of what we requested already to be budgeted for the fire truck reserve out of undesignated as opposed to the full amount budgeted through taxes for this next year. Am I right in all of that?
A couple, the building, the painting and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
I don't think we can reduce this amount by that and do all these projects. Because I have a feeling we're gonna have, like, the town office needs some work. So I think we need to make sure we have enough in this line outside of these projects to do some other stuff too. I don't know how much right now, but we've gotta have a little bit of a push there.
Yeah, definitely. The exercise with this is to push to getting figures together for projects. You know, I mean, I'm saying it's not gonna happen this year for town office. I mean, we have some estimates on some things that need to be done. But, again, there's a larger question there too. When we're putting into.
Yep.
The overall maintenance versus whether we're
Yep.
slapping. Sticking the peg here.
So how much, I am hoping that these numbers will all be accurate. So if that's,
just said 66.
so how much do we want to,
Can I just, before you get into that, offset, so if. So is year to date?
no, no, that's how much we put in.
Balance.
Yeah, we moved into it this year.
But our balance is 136.
Right.
Which is.
Because there were expenditures in each of those fiscal years too, but you don't have those tracked in the actuals. You just have the total that you transferred and budgeted, not the actual that you spent. Does that make sense?
It does, I mean, because it shows up at the end, the value plus budget,
Right.
that's the number. It's just hard to track it.
I'm just, yeah,
It is harder to track.
Yeah.
Sure, in the way we have it displayed here.
So I'm just wondering if we're asking this year to raise $75,000 to put into that municipal budget reserve, right? That's
This is
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
additionally 75. Turn that down or not do that and take, so without that, it's 110. It's that number 110 minus 75, that's exactly what's.
It's the other column, 36.
Oh, there it is right there.
Right. So unless we know of any big projects coming up, we could drop the 75 down to whatever, 25, and then add the 66 in.
From undesignated, is that, yeah,
Yeah.
that was my question. is
Yeah.
that
Do
what
you-
were asking?
Do you know of anything coming up that's big that needs to come out of there?
My biggest concern is that if anything comes up with town office, we haven't budgeted for it. There are a number of things that very easily could be on this list with town office, but that's a bigger kind of philosophical question as Joel alluded to.
Yeah.
Like how much money to, because we know for one, our fuel tank is, or our furnace, excuse me, is at its expiry date, our hot water heater is at its expiry date. There's a number of siding, paint issues that could be addressed in town office. The bathroom really needs a zhuzh. The a zhuzh.
It's a technical decorating term.
And the carpet is ancient.
Yeah.
In town office and is really like an allergy.
Yes, the way, I mean, I get all that. I mean, it's all necessary, including the judge. So thanks for enlightening me on that term. No, I'm thinking, I mean, philosophically, the way I'd like to be able to hear this sort of task list is prior to the point that we're talking about. So I'd like to be able to know, if we're talking about doing, this work, I think it should be preceding point in time we're talking about reserve budget. I don't like making this up, not that I'm saying we're getting it. It's not like we're going towards a point where we're saying, okay, we have to do all this work. Let's put a number at it. I think we should have some due diligence leading up to this discussion, like, for example, solar, we've got some instruments. We know exactly kind of, what we've planned. We talked about that through the year. We've gone out, we've done, the town manager's done due diligence. Now we're sort of figuring out what makes best sense. I feel uncomfortable with the idea of coming up with projects that we might do at the point in time we're trying to.
Well, and every time we've had a select board goal setting discussion, we've talked about town office and we keep landing in the same place of we need to really have a philosophical discussion about how much money we want to invest in this building and what we want to do going forward. And it ends up resulting in a stalemate and us doing nothing.
Mhm.
And then we end up kind of unexpectedly pulling money out of the municipal building reserve when we just can't wait anymore and something needs to be prepared. So you're right. It's like we do need to have these discussions. I would say we do keep having these discussions and we keep not coming to a conclusion
'Cause
about
it's hard.
how we,
That's a
yeah,
hard
it's
question.
hard. It's hard.
Well, let me, for example, here we've got 5 items that are, maintenance for, maintenance or long-term maintenance projects for 2 buildings. We've got that listed here. So obviously and I think some of these have actually got some estimates behind them. So there's some due diligence to sort of present this. They're saying, if we're gonna have other projects in the town office or wherever, it'd be nice to have. Well, just the background, the backing documents to know what we're talking about, the budget.
Or at least the plan as to what
The
it
plan,
is.
exactly,
So
yeah.
again, if it's putting carpet in or doing
Flooring.
anything that's like that. When we know that we have a known expense coming up, we've got a gutter that's sort of fallen off and the trim behind it's kind of falling off and there's, things like that. So I mean, we have 10-ish grand there that we need to, put aside for that, but.
That,
Yeah,
that,
and what are the projects I haven't compiled budget numbers for these things because I haven't received guidance on whether we want to
Yeah.
do anything about them or not.
Well, that's fine.
You
I think we go back to another discussion that we had at one point. Like, it would be nice to know what these items are and not leave it up to the office administration lists.
Yeah.
To have somebody
Yeah.
that knows facilities and knows
Look-
the maintenance that's due.
you've reached out to council to do a look around, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a quick look around on the exterior of the building. When he came to give us a quote, but it's not, we don't have a facilities maintenance person, which I think would.
Right. But did
Be
he,
more comprehensive.
could he give you a list of things and some costs?
He pointed out the gutter and that was that at that point. I'm sure he would be capable of helping us if we knew we wanted to move forward with specific.
Just something like painting the trim, which has no paint on it. We've got to do that. We're not going to be out of that building in a year or 5 years probably. So
But we do have,
certain things have to be done.
but we do have a reserve here.
Yep.
for-
Is that where all that comes out of? I was just looking to see if there was another line item in the regular budget.
It probably would come out of reserve.
Okay.
It's a large enough expense and I mean, if it were. It depends on the cost of it, right? If it were to eat up our entire facilities maintenance line, I would probably ask for it to come out of reserve. If it was small enough that it could go into. I'd ask for it to come out there, but again, that's where you all have that control too, week to week when you're looking. If you say this looks like a better expense for this budget line, then we can move it on time when you're.
Okay.
Philosophical.
All right. I'm with you. I don't think we need to worry about it right now. You're right. It is something make them up next year that we don't anticipate right now.
I mean, I kind of looked at it. Look at previous years. It kind of seems like we're living at, on average, $50,000. We want to keep on living at that. We gotta put a pretty substantial chunk down out of undesignated, and that might catch that in the attempt to catch up to a point where we can just pull off of that and go $50,000 of putting into reserves.
For which item?
For municipal buildings. I mean, if and by doing that, you're stabilizing taxes. When you're going up and down on these reserves and the thought that you're going to have stuff come up the next year. It's kind of the same idea as well, you change the budget.
Are there any takeaway conclusions here with this list and how much money you all want to pull from undesignated for specific projects?
That's what we need.
So we can move on to other section.
I would throw out moving the municipal budget reserve budget number to $50,000 like it was last year. And put on the warrant to transfer. I would 25 plus 66. You're pretty much, you're almost at 100. I mean, 100,000 is square. In the attempts to recoup some of the value of the risk.
Yeah.
So 100 to municipal building reserve from undesignated and reduce the budgeted amount down to 50.
Wait, 100? Remember?
Yeah, just it would be 25,000 plus 66 and then.
See, in
round
the
it out.
25,000 that was just taken, that we could take out of
Right.
There's
the
some stuff,
budgeted amount.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Take that out.
there's other stuff with, I mean, that doesn't include anything that. this year. Whatever the difference is there, we could find this fall too. And it's not gonna go away. It's in reserve, so it's.
Yep.
If not all those projects get done, that could be done over the next couple of years.
Okay.
So
It-
I'll to 100.
Yeah, it does change a little bit the conversation that we're having as to how we're doing it as far as project specific, but that's as long as we count for that extra
And then 100.
25 as a unknown or whatever. I mean, it just
Yeah.
that's the whole point is I'm trying to bring our chart of accounts into a situation where it's there's again, the taxpayers have that oversight and we have that oversight as to what the money's going to, you
Yep.
know what I mean? And so, and to create that discipline of this is the project list, this is what we want to do, this is what we're doing. In regard, instead of just like sky could fall tomorrow, or this is happening, or our
Yep.
buildings are falling apart. And I think that larger discussion is, again, that philosophical one that we're not answering by throwing $25,000 at things.
I mean, I guess we don't look for that. every year. Put it in.
Yeah,
So,
Yes, sir.
If I could just comment on what you just said, though. We don't. However, how would your thinking change if this is a huge hypothetical, there was a plan in place that we were going to replace the town, build a new town office in 2 years?
Yeah.
How would your thinking change if the plan was in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? Because it would change drastically. The answer would change drastically. If there's a 5-year plan to get a new town office, no, don't replace the carpet. Live with it for 5 years. Let the next owner deal with it. So, yeah. Yeah. I think that question needs to be answered. We've been coming up, and I'll just say it, we've been coming up hard on the idea that we have to replace the town. We've outgrown the town office. We've reshuffled it 3 times and we still don't have enough room. We're now meeting in this space because we can't meet over there anymore. So we need a bigger space with a meeting room and more offices. Like that's not that hard a thing to just, I think,
We need-
admit to ourselves.
And we need a much bigger fireproof storage room.
Yes, that
Yeah.
thing is ridiculous.
Well,
The fact that it's
One
here
of the
and
bigger-
the vault, that we run
Yeah.
out of room in the vault.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, yeah, it's not a budgetary conversation, but it impacts the budget because if the plan is in 5 years, we need to be moving into a new town office. It impacts this budget, next budget, the budget after that. You're not going to put any money in that building. I'm sorry.
I'll say that the changes since I've been on the board here are, and what we're taking care of in an annual budget versus what was a hold on to your hats and take, whatever conversation is this year are proposed, we haven't signed off on anything yet. But our capital roads is over $1 million, which is pretty epic. So we're looking at $1 million expenditures for capital projects in the course of a year. And so the idea of a building project for, well, that's an expensive prospect. It's not out of the realm of
Yeah.
possibilities, and it's not out of the realm of use of, again, some doesn't make that. So that's why I'm trying to
Yeah, I mean, I guess the taxpayers don't really know or understand that if there was a 5-year plan to replace the town office, we could do it without raising a single dollar in taxes.
Yeah.
That make sense?
Not increase the tax.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be funded through undesignated fund balance
Yeah.
entirely.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what should happen.
Yeah.
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 I'm just saying that's where we're kind of at. Like, I mean, these are good problems to have.
But even
Which is,
with, well, not having a plan yet, we still can start putting some money away for what's coming down the pipe in however many years.
yeah and no. I mean,
Yeah and no.
yeah and no, because that's not what this account, that's not what that account is used for. That
No,
account
we have to
is-
create a new one.
That, yeah,
No, we do.
if we create a new account for a,
Yes.
for a building, but that requires, again, the idea of, and maybe that's the simplest way to get the town to start talking about it, is to allocate
Put some money.
$100,000 for that specific account to start it.
Well, if the perfect piece of land came up for sale tomorrow,
It doesn't, yeah,
you know,
And-
it'd be nice to
and
say,
we
we
haven't
got this,
done-
it's been
well,
approved.
but we haven't done, well, the land would be a separate thing. The land, I think that's a trickier legal.
Maybe.
So I've seen other towns, Jill, since you asked that question, I've looked into it, and other towns go and get approval from the voters. Do you approve the town of Newcastle to purchase land if it, as it becomes available for this purpose, for a sand and salt shed at this estimated budget amount, and then the voters either approve it or not? Is how I understand it works. So we would be able to.
But it's hard because it
You
could
mean a
be,
special town? meeting.
Yeah, you can do a special.
Yeah, that's,
but it could be a piece of land. It could be, oh my God, this building that was a commercial building that's would be perfect for us is now up for sale.
Okay.
Like, we don't know.
But it's, yeah, and that's the. Yeah, there is some. I think we need to. And again, this is a budgetary and hypothetical and a substantive question. To bring up, and we need the town's buy-in to do something, to move in a direction, whatever it is. And I think that's the larger piece, and that is something that we could do with the undesignated fund balance and create that warrant article as a separate piece.
So I'm not necessarily saying do this.
Yep.
But being a resident of Hollowell, it was interesting this year. I'd never seen anything formatted like this before on a vote. They've been having this issue with one of their municipal buildings and deciding what to do with it, whether it needs work, whether they want to sell it, whatever. And simultaneously had another issue with outgrowing their public works bay. So they put a non-binding question on a ballot for the voters. Would you support Hollowell potentially selling their public works bay, recouping the money from that in order to purchase a new piece of property to build a new public works bay? And it was almost like it wasn't binding. It was like a public survey. Like, would you be okay moving forward with, and it was just, I'm not necessarily advocating for it because it was weird. I think you could be, sorry. Because the way I've historically seen people do it is that you ask a binding question and you say, are you comfortable with us moving forward with buying a public works bay? Here's the plan, here's the potential cost, da, 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 da. But it was really interesting because I think the elected officials were having a hard time determining if there was support for moving forward with something like that. So there just continued to be these public conversations with no solution at the end of the day. So they did that, realized there was overwhelming public support, and now I think.
but can I just ask, is it legal to just have a survey?
Have a
Put it-
non-binding question. They
Just-
did.
Just,
Yeah.
well, no, I'm just saying, you're going in the ballot, here's a survey question.
I don't know.
I don't know, I
I
mean,
don't think so.
it's not a warrant.
I
article,
think
but
so.
it's- Yeah,
I think the way I would, if we're talking about this and we're talking about the building concept specifically, and we get the building concept, we got the sand salt subject, we got the land subject, okay, and so land, building, salt shed, they're all kind of three different things.
They could all be on the same location.
Or, but we don't know, we don't know. We don't know if we
Right.
actually need the land to do that. We might have enough land with what we've got. you know, here, if we attach,
Mhm.
if we went off of here, there's, and we don't know that until we hire a professional to kind of give us some guidance on that thing, and so that could be part of that question, and we could move some money, we could have an estimated, you know, something, we need a place to start with, and I don't, again, like the idea of starting a committee to do that, I don't know what you get, you know what I mean? And really what we need is we need to hire a professional to give us, to look at what we've got, to look at our area, to look at, is this, you know, again, this would be the plan that would make the most sense. Is this something worth doing? The other option is vastly dumping a ton of money into our current situation and trying to find a way to stretch that one out and utilize other space. And who knows how that works?
Put an addition on the town.
Put an addition on the addition on the addition on the addition,
So, yeah, I mean,
but
I think you're referring to a needs analysis, which is something that we would need to. work. And, and then we can make decisions from that. Again, I don't think coming up, associating money with kind of just discussion like this so loosely makes sense to me. I think we need some documentation, something to review, a report, needs analysis.
So it sounds like maybe we're not ready at all forward with a dollar amount for land acquisition or establishing a reserve. Maybe this should be something that we look into further before we continue talking about it. Context of the budget.
I guess,
I think so. I mean, yeah.
Yep.
but it's something we.
Can I just say one thing about that?
Yeah.
If you were to include a language in a warrant article, transferring money from undesignated fund balance to establish a new reserve account for land, buildings, new town office, whatever the case may be, it will raise awareness. It'll be talked at town meeting, it'll be reported in the paper. And that's good. That's good publicity. What you need is input. They may turn you down. Big deal. You're talking about it. You could go to town meeting with a plan of it in the warrant to do that and say, regardless of what's going to happen with this vote, we plan to have a public hearing about it, because I think the survey question is funky
Mhm.
on a warrant.
It's so
It's
funky.
so
I've never
funky.
seen anything like.
That's the
Yeah.
purpose of public hearings.
Right.
That is what you do. When you're not sure, you hold a public hearing. What does everyone think about this? And you ask. And that would be, I think, a good valid approach, just because you'd get the exposure of it being in the paper. People at town meeting would be there. You may get more attendance at town meeting because it's on the thing, even though it's not being raised in taxes. So just putting it off again is going to land you in the same situation. You're still not going to know what to do.
No, I
Even
get
if
that.
you conduct a needs, you don't know if the people want it.
No, I know. I
So
guess one way to look at it though is for us to say, just conceptually, here's an idea. And the other way to look at it is, yeah, there's a concept. Here's what the professional said, or assess the problem to be. You can read about it here, but here's what we think you should do.
but if the bigger question is, are we either going to do this or not?
Yeah, I gotcha.
You got to get that question answered first.
Yeah, I mean,
The first step would be a needs assessment.
well, I mean, you
Or-
gotta
or-
define what the question is, I guess, that's the.
I
I
get
would say
that.
don't spend any money until you know whether the people back you or not.
Well, I guess what
That's all
I'm
I'm
saying,
saying.
I guess what I'm saying is that if we did say create a reserve line, I mean, like we haven't even gotten to the, again, it's important, all this stuff. But if we did create a reserve line that was a new buildings reserve. And we allocated some funds to it, not knowing exactly what our costs are gonna be, but based on $25,000 that we were gonna put towards a building maintenance, that we're gonna put to just throwing in a municipal building maintenance or municipal building reserve. We took that 25 and we put it towards a needs assessment, something like that, or possibilities, or whatever it is for the buildings that we have, we had that money available to us to do that. We have buy-in from the town saying, yeah, let's go for it. Let's look into these options. I don't know. It's a place to start. It'd just be nice to have a place to start.
I think that maybe then we could build back up the whole systems. Right?
Yeah.
Public works.
But it doesn't generate the same conversation.
No, it doesn't. But I, you know, back to just the land, I think that's a concept that I think we can. present to the people Town and say conceptually, we need one, because, you know, let's just look at it this way. We don't wanna have a salt shed, Great Salt Bay. Purchase these. And we'd like, and it's too small, we can't expand it. It's just not a good location for that. Therefore, we need some money. We can't fit it anywhere. We don't have any town money to do it. I think that's a concept that very easy to understand without knowing exactly the concept of the, of like say, a salt shed. Site plan. So yeah, no, I think we could probably say. it's Money. I think the question legally whether. we do that or not, but-
Well, interesting, you brought up maybe moving it into the technical assistance line of Public Works. Alternatively, I wonder if you all might think about if this is money specifically for a needs assessment, moving it to the municipal building reserve. Because it is a needs assessment to assess our municipal building needs. If it doesn't happen within the fiscal year, it also doesn't get rolled in. Just, and maybe if you want to really explain the breakdown of what we're putting into municipal building reserve, that the person who's in charge of talking about the undesignated fund balance transfer warrant article could highlight it and.
Yeah.
I don't know if just something
So you're
to
saying
think
put
about.
it in municipal building reserve.
Yeah,
Some number.
yeah, but I don't have a rough number at all for a needs assessment, if that's the place where you all want to start. But I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How to do that.
It would be on the list.
Mhm.
They needed one more thing on that list.
Instead of, well, it just replaces land acquisition and just puts in need assessment and. Needs assessment,
Yeah, I just want to
yeah,
figure out a way to jumpstart the conversation with the client from the town and make it clear that that's the intention.
Yeah.
That we've got these projects, and again, I don't know, maybe there's another way to do it. Just get up and pontificate at town meeting. But which is another, I don't know. We got everyone there, they're captive. All 30 people who show up.
45 last year.
You know,
Well, then to leave that as part of the $100,000. That would be included in that $100,000.
I'm just objecting, the only thing I'm objecting to is that if we're gonna be moving for specific things, it has to have,
A number.
it has to have something, it has to have a purpose associated.
Right.
Like I
Yep.
said, I just don't wanna, if we put, say, 25 in unforeseen whatevers, then
Let's not.
then we can do that. We just have to list that out as a potential item in that breakdown. If we're moving that out of undesignated fund balance, and then we have to look at our other maintenance lines and other things and say, do we still need $7,000 in the fire station? In this building maintenance line, if we don't have specific maintenance line, that's not for servicing. That for servicing a heat pump, that for servicing, a furnace, what is that $7,000 we're talking about? Because again. It's a different way of looking at it, the way we're doing it. If we're taking money and we're putting it in the reserve, putting it in this building, that's not how that line has worked traditionally. So then we bring that line to exactly what it is, and it's just the maintenance of the building. Not the capital projects. So those are the things that we just need to make sure that we're not double dipping on our
Yep.
lines of whatever.
So it sounds like to start then, I'm not gonna, as far as land acquisition goes, I'm just gonna get quotes and figure out what would be needed for a needs assessment. And then I mean, like Tom said, we don't have to do this all at once.
Right.
Let's just see what comes from that and then we can put a pin in it and have a discussion
Yeah.
later. We can always have a special town meeting if something comes up. To transfer from undesignated at that time. So what I have right now from this list is transfer 100,000 to municipal building reserve from undesignated and transfer 100,000 from undesignated for potential solar project
So let me ask,
after a bit.
let before you put the pen down, let me add
Okay.
this in. Okay, so last meeting we talked about this visioning, downtown visioning. As something, at the time I was thinking it would be a reserve item. So could we call it a visioning and needs analysis and have it in this list over here that would have a figure associated with it from a undesignated fund balance. And then, reassess it next year and it either carries forward or does.
You mean a traffic engineering study? For the intersection, so we can
Well,
move forward with a like, partnership initiative? Is that what
Exactly,
you're-
yeah, I'm talking yes, about the DPI, the village partnership initiative. So it's that money. But I think also, yeah, I mean, that was something we discussed last time, but, I'm calling it more of a visioning study, just because I think traffic study is too limited. So we'll present it to the town for more of what it is. It's more of a vision for the districts downtown. It's either a separate line item here or maybe it's part, we take needs analysis.
But do we have a number to go with that? So we don't know how much it's gonna be.
Well, we don't, it's one of those things, just like needs analysis, exactly what do we need to put away for that? So we don't.
With that program, we would have to go out to bid and have an RFP that meets Maine DOT standards, and we would need to identify specifically what we're looking at in a project. I was hoping you'd bring this up though, Tor, because I wonder if that's one of those items that let's go through the process, put out an RFP, and when we get that budget number, could we have a special town meeting and choose to allocate the funds from undesignated at that time if there's
Yeah, I
support,
mean,
since we're not ready yet?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's fine.
Or are you more inclined to make a reserve so that the town can have it there for future
Well,
needs or?
going back to the conversation we had at the last meeting, which is just to present it to the town. This is a concept. See if they want to fund it and, move that forward, because we know at some point we're gonna need money to do that. We know it's gonna be tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
$2,500. So it's gonna be one of those items that we're gonna have to fund at some point. And so. Yeah, I mean, conceptually, do we want to present that town meeting and say, here we are? I think to get it forward. To talk about it as soon as possible, where people are committed to it. Just adds to the bottom. So if you go to town meeting and say, here's our list, there's a reserve item here for visioning. There's some prospects out there, some partnerships that we may be able to work with the state on, and this is gonna help fund that study. Back to the town and give them your sense of what's been allocated or you know, don't know what, maybe it's not, I don't know. So I don't think we want to overfund it. I think we want to fund it enough so it says, hey, there's money here. But I mean, I think $50,000 wouldn't be a bad number for that. So see this being $50,000 in this state would meet us halfway on that, so maybe 75 comes from the state, 75 comes from the town, something like that. So,
I'm fine with creating a line like that, because I think it has other purposes beyond that. If we put it in the right, we use the right terminology and create. And again, we would be explaining what specifically we're allocating money for that purpose, if that. I think that's fine. I don't know.
reserve be type?
I don't know. Wouldn't be what he just said.
Visioning?
Yeah, it's just.
It's
too-
this
too
long.
broad.
It's whatever he said, it's not. But I think if we are serious about moving forward with this project, I think it's a good opportunity potentially. Then I think that would be the way to do it, because we kind of threw some money at it last year, but it just rolled back in the general fund. So,
Infrastructure planning?
There you go.
yeah,
Village
Vermont Public-
Village
Partnership,
Call it, we're raising money for the village partnership.
That's right.
but then it's a reserve. Is that?
we could always take it out.
If we close out the village partnership initiative. Though it's gonna take years for us. I'm just sorry, I'm just thinking.
Mhm.
So let's just
for
do
the
it.
Village partnership initiative.
Yeah.
Right. And fund 50,000 and
Yeah.
transfer from undesignated.
And it'd be a warrant article, so.
I think one of the things that the state is gonna be interested in, and one of the criteria items that they're gonna say, oh, Newcastle's a good candidate for this, is that we have money, and we're showing that we have money set aside for this.
Mhm.
I think we can show them that there's actually an account for PPI that the town is committed to and funds. So.
Okay.
Okay. Fire truck.
Well, you got an idea?
Ready?
I don't know. What if we put, well, let's see, what did we fund last year? Should we keep that level at 50,000 and then throw another 300 in it, and then we'll have what total? $400,000.
I mean, if we wanted to do something with undesignated fund balance, that made sense, it would be to pay out fire. We're paying interest on something.
Yeah.
I like this.
We've talked about this before, and I think, again, that brings our
Yeah.
our debt thing down, but our interest rate on the fire truck is not cheap.
No, although how much are we paying in interest right now versus principal, just principal?
Our interest rate on the fire truck, our interest rate on the fire truck's at 4.19%.
They really get it up.
Yeah, when you pay a mortgage, you look at your mortgage payment breakdown and it's all interest and then it dwindles down and then it becomes,
But isn't that's based on the amount of money, right?
That
How
you
much
borrow.
how much you're borrowing, so
Yeah.
So most
there's
of what
still
we're paying
interest.
right now. is
there's still
principal.
some, but. Sorry, we don't know what the payoff is at this point.
I don't know.
If we were gonna do something, like I said, with undesignated fund balance, we want to do it, rather than put money from undesignated fund balance into another reserve account, with a large amount out of undesignated into a reserve account. I don't think that necessarily makes sense.
Up to you guys, how you wanna
If we're
distribute that.
gonna strip something out, we strip something out.
I don't know. I think Karen does have a point, though, that most of what probably is being paid off now, where there's only 4 years left on the loan, is likely principal.
So we can look and see, but, because
But
we can find, yeah, Sarah can find that out, but
I guess I'm just
It's-
saying that
probably down, we're probably down in the 140s, somewhere in the 140s now with the payoff. Oh, nope, that was 19. We're down even way lower than that. That was 19. I was thinking that was last year, 2020. We probably don't know
I
much
can-
on that
I
at
can
all.
Get that tomorrow.
Okay, we probably don't owe much on the truck at all.
No.
Yes.
Good. A related question, but it goes to what we were talking about last week, which was the ratio of debt services to.
Right.
Did you have any time to look into that, or?
It's, I'm sorry, Ben, I don't have an
It's fine.
official number.
It's
for
not a
you
problem.
from the bank-
It's not a problem.
From the municipal.
My,
bond.
I guess my whole point though is that. Carrying debt isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
And we don't have a ton.
Mhm.
To
It's
cap-
very manageable. And, you know, when we go to do the truck, it's likely in 4 years minimum, it's likely that we're gonna finance some of it. If you throw too much out of undesignated into a reserve for a fire truck, you're never gonna transfer it out.
What do you mean?
You're never gonna not spend it on the fire truck.
Right.
So you know you've got at least 4 years, so there's no, in my estimation, there's no sense in throwing like $300,000 into the fire truck reserve from undesignated fund balance right now, when you just don't need to. Put 50 in this year, put 75 this year from undesignated fund balance, do the same thing next year, do the same thing for the next 4 years. Then when you actually get the bill, then you go and say, okay, how much do we want to take out of undesignated reserve and how much do we want to finance? But there's nothing wrong with saving a little bit across all these things. It just seems like putting like a whole lot of eggs in one basket when you don't know what the outlook's going to be like in
Yeah.
4 years.
No, that makes sense.
I mean, from that perspective, throw whatever in that, throw another something into I don't know what it was called, building. What do you call it, for land acquisition and
The municipal building reserve that we
Yeah.
already have, yeah.
No, he was talking about the land, which we decided we weren't gonna do anything with right this.
Yeah, well, I was thinking I'm gonna get quotes for a needs assessment, but
Right.
then that could potentially be something allocated to our existing municipal buildings.
Yep.
If you all are okay with that, but we're not really ready even yet to talk
I know.
about it without.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, well, then what do you think about the fire truck, as you said before, just reducing that allocation through taxes back down to 50 and then allocating money out of undesignated?
50-50.
We should take some out.
do you even need to raise? Do you even need to raise any money through taxes for the
For-
fire truck this year?
Do we need to raise any money for most of our reserves out of taxpayer dollars this year? Is the question.
No, the answer is absolutely not. You don't
That's
need
right.
to.
Right.
I mean, the way I look at it is, what do you want to? What's a comfortable number year after year that you? I mean, do you think that $50,000 is a good place to be every year, put money aside? Then do that, and if we want to there wasn't a truck reserve for a large portion of time. Try to make up some of that amount. That's kind of the same. What is that still? Yes.
How much should we transfer, do you all think, from undesignated then for the fire truck? If I reduce it back down to 50, which means there's no increase through taxes.
Well, at this rate, if we did 50 every year, with none coming up undesignated, we would still have what, 4 years, we'd have $300,000.
Yeah.
We'd have
50
$300,000 in 4 years anyway.
Yeah.
We're shooting ourselves in the
Just-
foot, using some of this undesignated fund balance.
No, because don't
No,
forget, you haven't gotten the school numbers yet. When you get the school numbers, if it's not healthy, changes the whole conversation.
And again, the thing about the reserve account, again, it's silly in a way, but it's not silly, but that he's sitting on an extra $1 million over and above what we should have. And then ask the taxpayers to fund these reserve accounts. It's an incredible double dipping situation. Especially if we're aggressively trying to build something. So if we're, so I would say, keep it at 75 and let's take the whole 75 out of undesignated fund balance.
That's fine too.
And that gets us closer to the goal. And it makes sense and it's fine. We haven't done it for a bunch of years. We're doing it.
And if you have to raise it out of taxes next year,
Well, yeah, that's the consideration, right? Is that
We'll be going up
then
and
it
down.
would be a jump when you add it back into taxes.
Well, but we could go back down to 50 for the other, we're asking for, we're taking 75 out of undesignated fund balance to hit that. Or, I don't know.
Well, then you're saying you're raising zero money
Zero.
for the fire truck, but
You're actually.
where would we do that? I think I would keep it flat. I think try to keep it flat or at the very least go to 25 or something. I don't know. I'm thinking of it as steering a ship.
I mean, yeah, they go, say 25 is more. We're kind of year after year. I mean, they don't replace trucks every other thing.
That's since
But,
nineteen
I mean,
seventy-four.
yeah, just this is one of those circumstances. I mean, 30 years is usually what is figured on a useful life of a piece of equipment. as far as vehicles. So you figure you're probably at about every 7 years on average. I mean, if you put 25 every year,
How many
For 7 years.
trucks are there?
there's town trucks.
So Casey gave us a list.
Yeah, that ain't,
Well, no, let me ask the question another way. I'm sorry. How many trucks are there the town would have to replace? I mean, how many trucks
Yeah.
total are there?
there are,
Like if you didn't get them from grants or other sources, you know what I mean? Just like how many fire trucks are there total that Newcastle has? 9?
there's, yeah. Eight.
So if we stay static at 8
Yeah.
and a truck lasts 30 years. And you're supposed to, do them on a stagger. That's, you should be buying a new truck every
So, yeah.
4.5 years,
some of
5
them are
years.
pretty- Some of them are pretty.
Yeah.
Smaller expenses. Large expenses. This one's just this is one that they're looking at now is a large.
So we've got the next one up would be engine 5 in 34. So we get 10 years to go on that one. That's the next one up. That's a couple $1 million.
But we're 4 years from the next one, so then we'll only be 6 years from till the next one.
No, the next year. Tanker 10 would be up, and that's $1 million one right now.
Let me just,
So, yeah, I mean, we got a while and then they're gonna be right together.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to argue for or against anything. I'm just trying to say like,
No,
you could conceptually, you
Yeah.
could put as much money as you want to in fire trucks. Forever. And it will never be enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we argue about 25 here or 50 there or 75 here, for 15 years, we did 0.
Right.
Yeah.
So whatever we do is going to be great. The only question is, are we taking it out of undesignated or are we raising it in taxes this year? And what do we think is going to happen next year?
So we should probably figure on an amount to have for kind of thinking forever.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what we want forever and then take some more out of undesignated to deal with, the upcoming. And if we don't use it all, when this one comes up,
It keeps.
we
rolling.
know that in 10 years, we get 2 big ones coming
Well,
up.
and the thing is you can choose how much you want to pay out and
Yeah.
how much you want to bond.
Right.
So, I mean, that amount of debt is gonna help stabilize the reserve account, which stabilizes
Mhm.
the budget. So, I mean,
So then what do you feel then about keeping it flat at 50 and just waiting until we get the actual cost of transferring it out of undesignated at that time? Or do
That's
you want
4
to
years from now,
transfer
though.
certain now from undesignated?
Let's do some, I would like to do some now, just because people
Undesignated.
will then know.
it's coming up. I
Yep,
mean,
yeah.
if they see it for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're gonna know it's coming.
How much do you all want?
We could do 20, we could do 20, we could do 25 or 50. Two numbers. 50 out of undesignated.
And if we end up in 4 years having $600,000 in there, we don't have to use it all on that truck. We can let it ride because we know we got a big bill.
So we're gonna
coming down the
change,
road.
change that to 50 and then we're gonna have a separate warrant article to
50.
take an additional 50 out of undesignated fund balance
All right, so here's what I've got so far
to add. to the fire truck.
from undesignated.
Yeah,
We've got
Mhm.
100,000 to municipal building reserve from undesignated, reducing the allocation in the reserve down to 50, so keeping it flat. And then 50,000 from undesignated for the BPI reserve and creating a new BPI reserve. 100,000 from undesignated for a potential solar project and 50,000 from undesignated to the fire truck reserve, which puts us at 200,000. Just wait. So.
Just
What did I
what we
miss?
usually
We had
do.
150 and 100, right?
250s, 100s.
But what was,
But one of the hundreds is not going to a reserve. It's just getting expended out of undesignated, which is for the solar project.
okay, so we have 100 for building maintenance, 50 for the fire truck, 100 for solar, and what was the other one? That was it.
Oh, and then the money for the.
Oh, the 50 for the
VPI.
VPI.
Okay,
Alternatively, we could transfer the additional 100 for the solar project to the building reserve if you want to have it in account and keep it. clean.
You know, one of the things that, as I was listening to you talk about all this stuff, I'm just wondering if it would make sense to recategorize a little bit and have a facilities major section that everything would fall under that relates to facilities, because it's scattered everywhere at the moment.
that's the problem I have with it.
Yeah, it's all over the place, right?
But I don't know how to do that.
You just make it, and you grab those lines and you stick them there. It's a spreadsheet.
One of the-
On
One
the
of the
spreadsheet,
things-
Sarah, not in Trio.
One of the things with the reserves, and I mentioned this earlier, it's so hard to track what we're year for
Mhm.
year. Oh, we spent this much last year on facilities this year for, so it's just hard to track it in this kind of format. It'd be nice.
Well, you have to think of reserves just like your investments. You get a statement that tells you how much you have, how much you gained, how much you lost. You only know that after the audit.
Yeah, I got you. It's just not a trending history. It's not.
It's
clear.
not clear.
It's a year to date is not.
Unlike our expense accounts where we can just go and print every receipt that we spent. this
Right.
fiscal year. It's expensive.
That sounds
I
fun.
don't love that.
But if
So-
we get- yeah,
So
Okay.
going back to that real quick, that question of how much to go from undesignated or something like that. If schools come in at 10%, you're gonna have to find $350,000 somewhere. So you're either gonna cut it or you're gonna spend it out of undesignated. But there's a chance you have $350,000 hanging over your budget.
Yep.
If that helps weigh the considerations about how much you want to do from here and how much you want to do from there.
Yeah.
Because it could look like a very different conversation in a couple of weeks.
I will say I wouldn't recommend offsetting any school increases with undesignated because it's offsetting a budget
No.
Yeah.
increase that we don't have. That,
No, I don't.
Something that bites you in the butt later on,
Right.
right?
we could
yeah,
really
it
eat through
doesn't make you look any better or worse, or
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
You'll have a bigger.
It's gonna
increase
go
later.
up again.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
If the school, I mean, historically speaking, it's very simple. School budget comes in high, you don't spend as much on roads. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I think we should put a pin in it.
Yep.
for
On the
tonight.
rest, all
I
right,
think-
going through the rest of the regular budget lines
I think,
for a final review.
yeah, do we wanna,
How about we just do, if we love meeting at 6, just do an hour of budget and then not do any more during the meeting until we have our school stuff. Does that make sense?
or,
I mean, have a workshop and then
But only that hour. Wanna just-
So
Or
our-
not, I don't
Our
care.
next meeting is, next regularly scheduled meeting is when?
24th.
24th. Do we feel like we need to pull something next week to get things?
I'm not here next week. just so-
We have we've gone through at this point, every department. This was our last really big discussion that we had to have. So the only thing left to do for us as far as our municipal budget is just review every department for a final time and you all tell me if the numbers look good. So I'm really just looking for a final thumbs up and then we're just waiting for schools. We're done. We've been meeting on budget since January. We're in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, I still have some questions, but I mean, I still, yeah. Things I wanted to go over.
Yeah.
so.
Oh, for sure. No, we
Yeah,
still
yeah,
need to go through everything one
yeah.
last time, but I'm looking, it's like the final.
Yeah, yeah.
review.
Well, I think we should plan on 6 again then for the 24th.
We'll just-
plan on-
I agree.
We'll just do an hour on that and then just do the regular meeting.
No, we're gonna continue, but if the hour works, great. If the hour doesn't.
All right, you want to
keep
just go
talking
through each
budget.
section then? Okay,
We're gonna keep talking about it. I mean, we're in budget season, so
okay.
I'm not saying we're just gonna talk over an hour and then not talk. We're gonna talk about it until.
Well,
we're done.
your intent, I just want to know then, your intent is to go through and line by line and get everything.
We can start at 6. We
Okay.
can start at 6, but we're gonna
Okay,
power through it.
Give me your finals and we'll be done. All right,
That is corrected. All right. So, moving on to town manager's report.
I will make it really quick. If I can find.
see you, Ben. Thank you.
Bye, Ben. I handed you all out all
Here.
of my
Yep.
manager's reports.
Send
I
that
have a manager's
Yep.
report.
The man-
Thank you.
You don't have it memorized? Come on.
You know,
What have you been thinking about for the past 2 or 3 hours?
I don't know. Good question. Filing deadline is Friday, April 14th, no later than noon for nomination papers. And we've received papers back for 1 school board committee member. We're still waiting on the 2 vacancies for select board. Historic Preservation Committee, again, all meetings are posted on website calendar. We have had a lot of interest from residents though, so I keep putting that on just so that people know where to find it. And minutes can be found under the town planning section of the website for public reference. Still tentatively thinking June 20th for town meeting, the elections June 13th. Parking ordinance, my favorite ordinance that we've been talking about for 2 years, which was a 1-sentence ordinance to address a blueberry stand parked in a place town of Newcastle didn't want it there. Where we're looking at a roads ordinance, we might consider doing a repeal and replace of that ordinance, but I wanted to bring it up for you because I'll put a draft warrant article on our draft warrant when I start putting them together and repeal that ordinance.
Oh,
Are fine with it.
before we have one to replace it, we'll
Right.
just go ahead and repeal that one.
Right. I think we can do it that way. And then annual reports due like last week.
Oh, if anyone has
If anyone has anything to write, you all can help me.
I have something to do.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
thank you.
I was hoping somebody, a fairy came down and wrote that for me, but yeah, no, I'll get.
You had a question, Chris?
Why, 22
The select board needs to vote and approve that that'll be the date, but that's the date we keep telling people it likely will. It's the, right. We usually set a town meeting date with the budget historically, when you all have a budget that you're ready to move forward with, but I guess we can set a date anytime. That's the date that we've been giving people publicly, is that the select board hasn't voted, but this is the date we're setting aside for town meeting. We've already reserved the gym at Lincoln Academy and we're ready to,
website calendar.
right, because we haven't voted officially yet for it to be the 20th.
We put it on.
Yeah.
We just go for it.
Or we just vote for it at the next select board meeting.
We'll vote for it. We'll vote on it the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Chris. Yep, and that's that.
All right. Great.
Yeah.
All right, do I have, moving on to town warrant, for $34,006.29. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Tom. Do I have a second? Moved by Karen. Any discussion on the warrant?
I just said it, what I think is an easy question. The sand and salt shed paving, is that done already? Do you know? Sorry, I would have, I just noticed it a little bit ago.
I can pull the date on the invoice, Karen, if you want to look at it. It's in here.
I should have looked when I drove by it today, but I was just curious.
They only invoice us when they're finished,
So it's probably already done. then.
but I can look and see the date they did it.
Nope, no problem. I'll just drive up there, poke my nose in and see.
It was done, we got this invoice on March 23rd. Yeah. It was an error of omission that left this unbilled to the town
Oh, so they did it
earlier. They did it
maybe,
earlier.
maybe they did it last fall or something.
Mhm. They did it in 2022.
Wait.
When
Oh,
they did
geez.
probably all the other paving.
2022?
Right. Not fiscal year, calendar year, because they do all the paving in the fall.
So they did last fall.
2020, yeah, I'm sorry.
Right.
I jumped ahead a bunch. I thought it was like
What?
2026. It's
Okay.
like 2022, that was 4 years ago. What are you talking about? Okay, it's been a long day. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? All right, that's a score with one absent. Do I have a motion to go into executive session under 1 MRSA section 4056D labor contracts? Moved by Karen, seconded by Tor. All those in favor?
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Passes. 100%.